Hey y'all, today we're making homemade Easy Mac. Okay, so I am going to use this chickpea pasta. I love this stuff. If you've never had it, you need to try it. It tastes just like regular pasta, but here's all the information if you want to look at it. What you're going to need to do is get whatever pasta you're using and cook it just according to your package directions, okay? We want it completely done. You don't need to leave it al dente because we want it to rehydrate quickly. So what I didn't realize when I got these, even when I was doing the video, is that my order, they gave me two different kinds of pasta. I ordered both boxes of elbow noodles, and I got elbow noodles and then like this cavatappi, however you say it, the big old curly noodles. So we're just going to have to work with what we have. So what I decided to do, I'm going to dehydrate this, obviously. This is what is going to make this Easy Mac, okay? If we go ahead and cook our pasta completely and then dehydrate it, all we have to do is quickly rehydrate it instead of cooking it for 10 minutes, okay? So I am just going to separate mine because I know these bigger noodles are going to take longer to dehydrate than my smaller noodles are. So I'm just separating them. You definitely don't have to. Don't worry, my hands are clean, but these are just for my house anyway. So like I said, I'm just kind of sorting through them so that I can get kind of even layers. And then it took me so long to sort through. Some of my pasta got like stuck together at the bottom of my little strainer. So then I had a tray of just pieces and parts that I put on there too. And what I had left over, because I couldn't do 2 full boxes on my dehydrator, it wasn't big enough. So what I had left over, I just ate for dinner that night. So, you know, you'll just have to figure out sometimes what your dehydrator will hold. But again, I mean, if you cook something like this, you can always eat what you're not able to stick in your dehydrator. So we're going to dehydrate this at 135 degrees Fahrenheit okay, I started mine the day like at night and I let it cook all night long and part of the next day. I just let mine go. If you've been here a while, you already know this. I just let mine go until it's done. And that can vary, you know, from, you know, your environment, your dehydrator, how big your noodles are, all the things. Now, one thing I will say is this chickpea pasta has a little bit more of a bite than regular pasta. So when you're dehydrating it, or just cooking it in general, I guess, and then when we rehydrate it also, it takes a little bit longer that I have found. Okay, I'm just saying. But I love this idea because I can have a healthier pasta and still get like macaroni and cheese if I want it. And what I'm doing right now, I'm separating it so I can put it in the jars separately. But if you don't have 3 different kinds of noodles, you don't have to do that. And I'm just going to let this cool down completely. So I just, like I said, I separated mine out just a little bit, and I'm going to let it sit on the counter, I don't know, for however long it takes to cool down. It doesn't usually take very long, 30, 45 minutes or so. Because we want to make sure it's completely cool before we put it in these jars, because we don't want to create any extra moisture. So I am using 8-ounce jars for this. This is going to be like if you buy the little Easy Mac in the little cup that you microwave, or like the Velveeta shells and cheese cup. That's like the portion size that we're doing here. So I am going to do 1/2 of a cup of my pasta into each of my jars. And I didn't say this, but I will, of course, have the printable links down below for y'all. And we're also doing a regular macaroni and cheese and a deluxe, okay? If you saw my homemade macaroni and cheese in a jar, you know I made a deluxe version and a regular version. So I thought I'm going to do the same thing with these. So what I did essentially was take the recipes that I used for my already jarred, like the equivalent of a whole box of macaroni and cheese, and I cut it down to fit into single servings. So that is what I did. So once you get your noodles or your pasta in your jars, we are going to get our little cheese packets together. Now, I guess if you wanted to, you could put your seasonings and your cheeses right down into your pasta. But I was just thinking, you know, when you get them from the store, they come separate. You cook in the microwave your macaroni noodles and then add your cheese once your noodles are done. So that is what I'm going to do. And I'm just using these little snack size baggies because they're perfect for stuff like this. So what we're going to do for this one, this is going to be our regular macaroni and cheese, or our regular Easy Mac, whatever you want to call it. And I am going to add in 2 tablespoons of this cheddar cheese powder. Now, you can use homemade cheese powder if you want to. I did show y'all how to make your own homemade cheese powder, and I do have still a little bit on my shelf, but I'm trying to get through the store-bought stuff that I had, so that's what I'm using today. So 2 tablespoons of that to each jar. Then we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of powdered milk, dry milk, and you can use non-fat, regular fat, whatever kind you have will work just fine. And then we're going to add a little bit of butter powder. This is optional, but when I cook macaroni and cheese, I always add butter, and since I had some butter powder, I thought I would throw it in here also. So now I'm going to add my seasonings. Now, I'm going to use 1/16 of a teaspoon of each one of my seasonings. I want the flavor. Now, you can just do cheese if you want to. That's what the craft is. But I like to season it up a little bit. And since this is such a small amount, I had to go with the smallest amount of seasoning that I could get. So, just 1/16 of a teaspoon ended up being the perfect amount. So I added in garlic powder and onion powder. I'm adding in a little bit of ground mustard. And then I'm going to add in some paprika. And again, this is all just 1/16 of a teaspoon. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of black pepper. I'm not adding any salt to this because the cheese powder is already salty enough for me. You can do it. Adjust these if you need to. If you make this and you're like, this is too cheesy or this isn't enough cheese, then you can absolutely just adjust it to your taste. But this is what I found worked for me, okay? So then I'm just going to roll these little bags up, trying to get as much of the air out of them as I can. And then I'm just going to fold them up and shove them down in my jars. I have the little 2-ounce, like the little, you know, what you would use like for Jell-O shots, the little plastic containers with the lid. They don't fit, well, the bottom part will fit into this jar, but the lid won't, so you can't get the jar lid on. So that's why I'm using baggies. But if you used a bigger jar, you could absolutely use the little plastic cups if you prefer. So that is our regular Easy Mac. All right, so the next one we're going to do is our deluxe. And this is just going to have a few more cheese powders in it to make it extra creamy, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the other ones. I'm using these bigger noodles in this one. And mainly I did this because that way I could tell the difference in the jars. So I would know what I was making for y'all. And because this is what I had, right? I had already used up the elbows that I dehydrated. So, but you can use any kind of noodle you want to for this, or any kind of pasta, whatever you call it. If you want to do the shells, you could do that. Whatever you have will work, but you know, smaller pasta is going to be a lot easier when you're putting it in these little jars like this. So now we've got our 2 jars of pasta ready, and we're going to get our seasonings together. So I'm doing the same thing that I did with the other one. I'm going to put my little snack size Ziploc bags on here, and I think I got those at Walmart or the dollar store. They do make smaller ones, and those would have been perfect, but this is what I had, so that's what I'm using. This is the smallest thing I had in my pantry, so that's what I'm using. All right, so for the seasonings for this one, we are going to add in, of course, our cheddar cheese powder. Excuse me. And this powder, like I think I was trying to say this earlier, this is what you get in a pack of macaroni and cheese. So if you just wanted to do the powder, you can absolutely do that. But again, I like to add a little extra seasoning to mine. If you're making it homemade, why not? So 2 tablespoons of the cheddar cheese powder. And now we're going to add 2 teaspoons of the powdered milk. And then I'm going to add in some other powders. Now, again, I do this mostly. I do 2 of these because I know a lot of y'all are not going to have butter powder and sour cream powder and all that kind of stuff. So I try to make a version that everybody can do, and then a version that you can elevate if you have the stuff to do it. So I added in a 1/2 teaspoon of the butter powder, and then I added in a teaspoon of sour cream powder, and then I'm adding in a teaspoon of Parmesan powder. And this is not like what you have to keep refrigerated, so this is perfect for something you're going to put on your shelf, because I know a lot of y'all don't like to put the other kind of Parmesan on your shelf. So now we're just going to season this up a little bit. We're using a 1/16 of a teaspoon of each one of our seasonings. We're doing onion powder and garlic powder. And then I'm also going to add some paprika and a little bit of pepper. And I didn't add the mustard powder to this just because I was adding all the other extra stuff, but you can if you want to. You can add anything to this that you want to, but this is the flavors that I like in my regular macaroni and cheese, so I stuck with that in these smaller versions also. And y'all know I'm going to show you one of them cooked in a minute, so don't worry about that. So the same as with the other one, we are just going to roll these little baggies up the best that you can. Try to get as much of the air out of there. Just be careful, because if you try to squeeze the air out too fast, you end up shooting powder everywhere. Don't ask me how I know. Okay, don't ask me how I know. But anyway, that's all you have to do, y'all. These are super easy, and you don't have to make the deluxe or the regular. You can pick which one you like the best and just make a whole bunch of those. But I'm just trying to give y'all some options, giving y'all a few options. And these will be great on your shelf for as long as your ingredients are good. So if you have like the different cheese powders and stuff, if they have expiration dates, then just go by your earliest expiration date on whatever ingredients you're using. Okay, so I'm going to make up the deluxe. You make them both the same exact way. So the reason I'm using a bowl is because if you just add the water to the jar, when you put it in your microwave, the jar will boil over. So I learned that the hard way too. So we had a 1/2 cup of pasta, so we're using a 1/2 cup of water. So equal parts pasta and water. And I microwaved this for about 3 minutes. And you see it still has some water in there. I wanted to have a little bit of water so when I mixed my cheese powder in there, it could kind of mix in with the water. Does that make sense? So anyway, I'm just going to mix this up really, really good. And then I'm going to pop it back into the microwave for another 30 seconds or so, just to let that liquid thicken up just a little bit. And it's very, very orange because the cheese powder is super, super orange. If you make this with homemade cheese powder, it won't be this really crazy looking orange color, okay? It's just the cheese powder that makes it that way. So you see how we still got some liquid left in there? That's why we're going to pop it back in the microwave. And depending on how well your noodles cooked and what kind of noodles you're using and stuff, you may need to adjust that time just a little bit. If you don't use a microwave, you can absolutely pour boiling water in this and let it just stand until it rehydrates. Or you can boil some water on the stove and add that to it and let it rehydrate that way. Whatever way works for you will be just fine. But that is it, y'all. We finally got around to making our easy mac. These would be perfect in an emergency situation where you didn't have electricity and you needed something to eat, or you just want to have some fun stuff on your shelf. All right, that is all I have for y'all today, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.